Okay. I'm live, guys. Okay. Holy butt nuggets. That was crazy. So what happened is last week, someone tried to hack into my account, my Google account. And so I had to reset passwords. And so now every time I have to log in, and I forgot about re-logging in properly on my husband's laptop. I did not think about that at all. Anyway, so I am late. I apologize. Everything's a mess. I had to run to the pharmacy real quick. My new prescription was finally in. They got it in this morning, so I had to go get it, and I can't see nothing under here. Oh, there. So I literally, I don't even have the dog space set up next to me right now. So the dogs are the weens are a bit restless right at the moment. Let me, thankfully, I was able to get some stuff edited this morning, and I got it, on a flash drive. So, stop. Oh my gosh. Told you, he is restless. I can't even read the screen today. Let's try this one. This is what it's from this morning, so I'm not even sure which clip this is right now.
And?
Ooh.
My phone. I said my name and my phone number. Was it my name and my phone number?
Name, phone number, and an email address.
Yes, sir. I forgot the email.
All right, it's Judge Simpson.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
All right. She gonna mess it up. All right, thank you. We'll see you in
Wednesday morning.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Take care.
It's from Wednesday morning.
That was the end of that block?
Oh,
The 12 block?
so behind right
Okay,
now.
folks, give me about 5-10 minutes. Come back and I'll start running through the rest of the cases. Court is staying in brief recess.
I muted it, apparently.
Amber, I need you to call the public defender's office so that I can speak to you briefly. I've been trying to reach out to the phone number we have on file. It does.
Hello? She did something bad.
Could you call the public defender's office, Amber? And
It was
ask
bad,
for me,
guys.
and they'll transfer you over to me. You have the phone number?
Yeah. There goes my dog. Hey, Erica's girl. Yeah, there's that. In her hand, in the bathroom. She's up in that corner right above the Zoom. And that's the email back I got from Lisa Tang. Just so you know, I come with the receipts. When I found out about that, I reported it. And I sent it to the court because I didn't know who else to contact. Clearly, that girl needs help. She has a crack pipe. Alleged crack pipe in court. On Zoom court. I know she didn't think she was on screen. But she was. So, yeah, that was bad. That happened Wednesday, and they did pull it today. And just so you know, so now, yeah, Judge Simpson does know who I am, because I actually straight up identified myself in that email. I sent it from my personal email, though, but I said who I was. Because I've actually emailed from my YouTube email address. So I emailed from personal though, because that was kind of a big deal. I don't know what this is. Do I not have anything else edited, switched over yet? Oh, man, you guys. I am sorry. This whole people trying to hack my stuff really messed with everything, and I forgot all about it. Let's see. You know what? Judge Simpson is live right now. Let's go over to his landlord-tenant docket, because it's Judge Simpson, and I love Judge Simpson. What? What? Oh, sorry, guys. I am discombobulated as all get out. Now, I think you just ended. Really? Really, Stormy Simpson? Judge Stormy Simpson, really? You just did that to me. I'm not happy. Let's see. I know what I can do. This one, I actually was working on editing it. Yeah. I was working on editing this, so we're just going to not have the edited version. And this is out of Lansing.
Thank you, Your Honor. You said that.
Okay.
Language.
I think this is right before the case comes up. I don't know. Is it me or everything seems real dark today? Oh, Fred, stop.
Thomas Patterson.
Okay, here we go. Now this case is, I'll throw up a trigger warning. It involves some descriptions of
In the matter of the people of the state
domestic
of Michigan
violence
versus Scott Thomas Patterson, file number 23-00785FY. Appearance, please.
Brian Ring on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jared Osmond, appearing on behalf of Mr. Patterson. He is present to my right at counsel table.
How are you, Mr. Patterson? Okay, today's the date and the time that was set for a preliminary examination. Are we ready to proceed?
You are ready to proceed at this time, Your Honor.
As are we.
Okay, any preliminary matters?
None from the people, Your Honor.
No preliminary matters on behalf of Mr. Patterson, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to confirm, I believe people are only calling one witness and therefore sequestration may not be necessary.
There is an officer here, but I'm undetermined this time if I need the officer.
Given that, Your Honor, I would just ask for an order of sequestration since there's a possibility of multiple witnesses.
Okay, sequestration order is granted. You can call your first witness.
At this time, the people will call Bethany Burtis.
Sorry about that. Fritz is wanting to be very particular as to where he's sitting right at the moment, and it's not a good spot.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Think you can have a seat there, ma'am? There's a microphone that's in front of you, and I have a court reporter behind you. She has to take down everything that's being stated here today. So your responses need to be verbal. They need to be loud and clear. Also taking into consideration that we have that glass that may block some of the sound, okay?
Absolutely.
Very good, very good. And then if there's an objection from either of the attorneys, you'll stop speaking. I'll make a ruling on that objection, and then I will let you know if you can get that response or not, okay?
Okay.
If you don't understand a question, you can ask to have it repeated if you didn't hear it. And then state your first and last name and spell both of them.
Bethany Burtis, Bethany, BERD as in Diane, ES as in Samuel.
Proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. How are you today, Ms. Burtis?
Pretty good, thank you. It's Friday.
Ms. Burtis, back on March 12th of 2023, were you at 1054 North Cedar Street?
Yes, I was.
Is that in the city of Lansing, county
Yeah.
of Ingham, state of Michigan?
Yes, it is.
And who is there with you?
Scott Patterson.
How do you know Mr. Patterson?
We met each other working last summer for field works, canvassing.
And did you live at that address?
I did on and off. I actually have a permanent address, but I stayed there a lot. We were dating
And how long had you been dating?
since September, October
Of what year?
of 2022.
And so what happened on March? Can you tell me about what happened on March 12th?
March 12th, I went over to his house late. It was actually on Saturday night. And we were hanging out, talking, drinking a little bit. And then he started getting angry, so I got up to leave. Sorry,
Do you know about what time it was? That
I think
you
1
got to-
a.m.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, how could, I'll continue. So I got up to leave. And
Hey,
he-
Terry Sue, how are you doing?
And he hadn't hurt me before, but I dropped the charges.
And did at some point you lay down to take a
Yeah,
nap? Or
I was laying down and then he was getting angry, so I got up to leave.
And why, do you remember why you were laying down?
I was tired.
Okay.
It was early in the morning.
And what happened while you were laying down?
Not on I was on the couch. I got up to leave. Then he grabbed me by
Hey,
the
Rachel,
hair,
sorry, I
on the ground.
missed that one.
He then also
Trying
then
to
he slammed me on the ground, kneeled on my neck. I don't know how
get
long
my
it was. It was
shiitake
probably
mushrooms
10,
in
15, 20 minutes.
order.
And proceeded to hit me.
And when you say he was kneeling on your neck, how was he kneeling on your neck? Were you on your back?
Like the George Foreman thing. He was on my neck.
Were you laying on your back at the time?
No, I was on my side.
He was on your side, and he had a knee.
On my neck.
Okay, on your neck. Was it on the right side or the left? Do you
It
remember?
was on the right side because I had rug burns on the left side of my face.
And so, do you know about how long he was kneeling on your neck?
I think about 20 minutes.
And did you have difficulty breathing at any point?
Yes, but I was screaming as well for help.
And did he just continuously have his knee there,
Yes.
or did he stop and start?
No, he had it continuously.
And you said you were yelling for help.
Yes, I was yelling for, and I want to make this point if I can. I was yelling for help from the next door neighbor named Rudy. And I don't know what kind of language I can use, but he said, nobody can hear you. Bad words.
Terry, not as bad as what you're getting,
And did he say anything to you while he was doing
but
this?
we're
to you?
getting them.
I have no idea. I was in panic.
Did
I
you-
think he was
And
talking,
yeah,
but he was
wow,
mostly
just wait.
yelling and calling me names.
Did you lose consciousness?
Not that I know of.
What did it feel like?
Hey, Ironton.
Had his knee on your neck.
I thought I was gonna die. It was so painful. I thought he was gonna break my neck. He was kneeling so hard.
This dude is like
Did he
scary.
make any comments about killing you?
Yes, he said you're gonna end up like one of those MSU students.
And was that referring to the shooting at Michigan State?
Yes,
I actually covered
I'm
that
assuming.
live while it was happening,
And
so
then you said he slammed your head onto the floor?
yes,
How many times did you do that?
just the one time.
Was that
You guys
before or
wanna-
after he had knelt on your neck?
That was before, and then he kneeled on my neck.
May I approach, Your Honor?
I did live stream all the dispatch stuff from the scanner on the night while
Witness was Marcus Peoples
the
1
shooting was
and
going on
Peoples
campus.
Peoples 1 and 2. Just take-
And we were actually locked down where we live.
Do you recognize those?
Yes. The officer took them the night or the morning it happened.
Do those depict your injuries and you on that day?
There's more. They didn't show up till later that day because I had bruises all over my thighs. I was not able to sleep, lay down for a week.
Do those ones depict
Yeah,
fairly
yes, they
accurately
do.
depict? Do they
Yes, they
fairly
do.
accurately depict you on that day?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Mayor, if you could move for admission of Peoples
Sorry,
Peoples
guys.
1 and 2.
Any objection?
Without objection.
Admitted?
Permission to publish, Judge.
Yes.
And so you said you had some bruising on your neck.
My neck, my arms, my thighs, my hips, my back, my ribs. I had to sit up sleeping for a week. I couldn't lay on my back or either side.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Processing.
Morning.
Good morning.
So this is the victim, again, if those are you just joining
Mr.
us.
Patterson's permanent place of residence and not yours that you were talking about, is that correct?
Correct.
And the incident that you were talking about, that happened at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning
I
tonight?
believe so.
And what time had you arrived there?
Earlier in like 11 p.m. the night before.
Around a couple hours before that?
Yes,
Okay. And did you drive there? Did you walk there? How did you get there?
I drove.
And you stated that you were drinking there during that night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What had you been drinking?
Actually, I hadn't been drinking there. I was drinking earlier, but
So you were drinking
we
prior
usually
to,
we drink vodka.
so if I understand correctly, you were drinking prior to driving there, correct?
I don't remember.
Did you just say just a moment ago that
I
you had-
believe I had a beer at home before I went over there.
So then to clarify, you were drinking prior to driving over there, correct? And you said you believed that you had a beer?
Yes.
Anything additional to that?
No.
Hey,
I
Diarmid,
do believe I had
Ruha,
vodka
I
at
see you
Costco,
guys.
so.
So once you arrived there and started drinking vodka, how much vodka had you consumed?
I do not know.
Were you doing shots or something else?
No, just like sipping a shot.
And if I understand your testimony correctly, you stated that he had his knee on your neck, is that right?
Correct.
And you believe that that went on for approximately 20 minutes, is that correct?
Correct. From my feeling, I don't know. I didn't like look at the clock or anything.
And at some point you spoke to the police about this matter, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that during that early morning or was that a different time?
That was early. I went home and I called the police immediately. And they came to my residence.
And you spoke to them about this?
Correct.
And you relayed to them what had occurred, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you tell the police that Mr. Patterson had his knee on your neck?
Yes.
Is it true that you told the police that he was squeezing your neck with his hands and you did not tell them that he used his knee?
I told them both.
And you'd mentioned a neighbor earlier, you said named Ruth, is that correct?
Correct.
Is this an apartment complex that we're talking about?
No, they were homes, houses.
Like townhomes?
No, house.
Okay. Was this a next door neighbor?
Correct.
You know Rudy's last name?
So there
Actually,
are
I do not.
homes, apartment complexes, and some townhomes in that neighborhood. So
Yes, many times.
that's why the questions.
There's one house north of 1054.
And so eventually at some point this incident stops, correct?
Well, when he said to me, nobody can hear you, you're gonna end up like one of
That
the
was not my
MSU
question.
students. Yeah, no, it didn't stop. I got enough strength because the adrenaline pumped when he said that. And I was able to finally push enough and then he tipped back. I kicked him and then I grabbed my purse and ran out.
And then did you drive back in your car? Or did you leave on foot?
I drove back in my car.
And you said you were screaming during this encounter, correct?
Yes, as much as I could, I was screaming for help.
The best of your memory, no one responded to that scream. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, Scott
Did you go to the hospital after this?
No, I decided not to. The officer asked me if I wanted to and I declined.
Have a brief moment, Sharon.
Thank you, Ironton. I truly appreciate that. You just made my week. And I know I have your support, Terry. You're awesome. If you guys don't already watch Ironton Auditor, you need to go watch his channel. Yes, he's an auditor, but he's an auditor that does it right, in my opinion. I like how he does it. He's fun to ride with. He talks about all different things. Definitely go check him out. Let's see. We can throw your link up to your channel. Go check him out, you guys, if you don't already. He really is a cool guy. I really enjoy him. Never thought I'd
And
be friends with an auditor.
you talked to the police that night. Is it true that you told them you walked back to your place after this?
No,
Okay. All right, thank you. I have nothing further.
Can you clarify for me? You said you were on the ground and he had his knee on your neck.
yes,
Okay, was there pressure being applied to your neck?
yes,
Okay, did it obstruct your breathing at all?
yes.
You're welcome, Terry. You know it's true.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So,
You said that he had his hands on your neck too. At what point during this did he put his hands?
It was at first, when I was walking out, he grabbed me by my hair, and then he grabbed my neck. and
only
then he
you.
Slammed me on the ground.
So you were trying to leave
Yes,
and he was trying to prevent you from leaving?
Objection, lady.
Go like and subscribe, you guys.
Were you trying to leave?
yes,
And you said he pulled you back in by your hair?
yes,
And when he was choking you with your hands, with his hands, did you lose the ability to breathe?
no, he didn't do it for long, he just grabbed me by the neck and then slammed my head on the ground and kneeled on my neck.
And who was the one that said no one can hear you?
Scott Patterson,
Is that person in the courtroom today?
yes,
Can you please point to him and describe something he's wearing?
he's wearing a blue shirt.
Let the record reflect that the witness is ID the defendant.
Yeah, objection to
Without
ID.
Without objection.
So noted.
And you spoke to the officer and you said that you had declined medical. Why did you decline medical attention?
'Cause it didn't, I think I was in shock at that point because nothing hurt until I went to bed and woke up and then everything.
No further questions at time. Thank you.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burgess. You may be excused. Just for the record, there is ma'am, there is a sequestration order, so that means that you can't speak to any other potential witnesses in this matter, okay, about your testimony.
You guys are killing me.
Are you calling any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the people will call Officer William Turbo.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury.
Yes.
Thank you, Officer. Please state your first and last name, spell them both.
William Turbo, WILLIAM TERVO.
Officer Turbo, where do you work?
19 Police Department,
How long have you worked there?
approximately 2 years.
In what capacity do you work?
Police officer.
Were you working on that capacity, in that capacity on the 12th of March?
I don't know if you have some buns, you have some
Were
junk
you
in your
dispatched
trunk.
to 1054 North Cedar Street?
You can make some money with that.
Is that in the city of Lansing, County of Bingham, State of Michigan?
Yes,
Why were you dispatched there?
for a domestic assault.
And did you eventually make contact with anybody?
Yes,
Who did you make contact with?
the victim. Getting her name escaped me. Last name is Birdie. I probably mispronounced that.
Did you make contact with her at that Cedar Street or at a different location?
The address off of Woodruff Road.
And what was her demeanor like when you made contact with her?
She seemed kind of shaken up. Kind of like excited, but not happy. I guess you could say.
Did you observe any injuries on her when you saw her?
Yes, I did.
What did you observe?
She had red markings on her neck, and she also had pretty good bruise on her forehead, if I remember correctly.
And did you ask her what
Rachel,
happened?
you're gonna get me in trouble.
Did she tell you what happened?
Yes.
Did she say who?
You just start my
who did-
OnlyFans.
Who did that to her?
Yes.
Did you eventually come into contact with, who did she say did that?
Her ex-boyfriend, Scott Patterson.
And did you eventually come into contact with Scott Patterson?
Yes, I did.
Is he sitting in this courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Can you point to him and describe something he's wearing?
He's sitting right there at the defense table wearing the blue and county jumpsuit.
Let the record.
You're welcome, Terry, and you're not a frauditor, so I won't treat you like one. You know I'm honest, brutally.
Okay.
Morning off.
Morning.
Did you actually speak with Mr. Patterson that night?
No,
Are you familiar with Mr. Patterson?
I am.
Yes, the OnlyFans. It'll be a fat chick eating me.
When is the last time you would have seen or encountered Mr. Patterson prior to this?
Prior to this incident, I've only encountered him.
Terry,
one or
you
two
shook the
times.
wrong side.
Couldn't tell you the exact date.
And did Ms. Verdes give you a full name or date of birth or anything?
Yes, she did.
I think you have nothing further, Your Honor. No objection to ID for the purposes of this hearing.
Why are you familiar with him?
I've responded to that address for other calls for service.
Sounds good. Identification is noted. You can proceed.
Did you take Mr. Patterson to Sparrow?
Yes, I did.
And did he say anything or shout anything at Sparrow?
He shouted a lot of things, but
Anything in reference to the victim?
he was repeatedly calling her vulgar names and saying that he was going to go after her if he got out of jail.
What did she say that happened to her? What did she say he did?
She said she was sleeping on the couch. She woke up with him leaning over top of her, hands around her neck, choking her. Also
No,
had me
dear man. No
on her
trifolds
neck,
here.
and he
They're invalid.
Squeeze, preventing her from being able to breathe. But then let her breathe. Just continually did that for what she approximately did 10 minutes.
And was what she told you consistent with the injuries that you observed?
I have plenty for both.
Thank you. No further questions this time.
Thank you. Morning again, officer. So you're speaking about talking with Ms. Verdes, and you described her demeanor as kind of excited. Is that correct?
Yes,
And was this the first time you'd ever encountered Ms. Verdes?
I believe so, yeah.
And so then you can't tell us from any prior experience what her typical demeanor is like. Is that correct?
Thanks, Terry. You guys, seriously go check out Ironton. He's really cool. Yeah, he's an auditor, but like I said, he does it right. He doesn't get up in cops' faces. He doesn't yell. If there's cherries and berries, I think is what they call it, he stays back, and he's got a pretty good relationship with a lot of the officers at Ironton PD. And I respect the hell out of what he does. And that's saying something, because I can be pretty skeptical about stuff like that. So he goes live at 7. You guys, it is fun. The chat is always pretty funny. So it's always a good way to spend a Friday and Saturday evening is hanging out with Ironton. So definitely go check him out. Throw that link up here again in a second. You guys go check him out for real.
That's too big for it.
And based on your observations,
Got to make sure you fit in the car tonight.
The influence of alcohol or any controlled substances when you were speaking.
She admitted to drinking.
And did you do any follow-ups and ask her how much over what period of time?
I asked her how much she had to drink.
Did she tell you?
I believe she told me 4 shots of vodka.
Holy smokes.
And you were speaking with her, this was at her place of residence, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And after leaving Mr. Patterson's residence, is it true that she told you she walked back his place to her place?
Yes.
Crossing versus Jeffrey Williams.
Jillian Engen for plaintiff.
I'm here, Shirley Williams.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Sorry, guys.
More importantly, who's the little one?
Winter.
Say again?
You didn't hear that. That was all me. I'll get this down, you guys, someday. I turned it down. Sorry. Oh, you did see that. Okay. Hang on. I wanted to show this first, and I didn't get it moved over. So this is this morning in Judge Simpson's courtroom. I added it to stream. There we go.
Jillian Engen for plaintiff.
I'm here, Shirley Williams.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
More importantly, who's the little one?
Winter.
Say again?
Winter.
Okay. It's a cutie. Yeah, see. That's who I'm going to talk to. I'm not talking to anybody else. All right. Let's see. They were going to put, I think, 250 into escrow. I don't have that.
I did it yesterday.
At the court?
Yeah. I have the receipt.
You see it? Hang on one moment. We'll be able to take a look.
I see $250.
Yep, we see it. Okay. It just didn't get on my printout. And you don't meet with Hawk until Monday.
I already met with Taylor, and she said that she's just waiting for the approval of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Real good. You're ahead of where I am then. Okay. Then let's do this. Let me adjourn it out a week and let's see. Uh-oh, another one. Hello. What's your name?
Stormy.
Stormy. I like that name. That's the name I want. Stormy Simpson. See, that would have worked.
It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, I
Judge
know.
Stormy Simpson. I
Maybe
like
I'll change
it.
my name. I
Like
could do
it.
that legally. Anyway. April.
Can you sign off on it? Or do you have to have a different judge?
April 28th, 2023 at 1 p.m., ma'am.
Okay.
And then we'll hopefully have some additional news and everything. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. You two little guys take care.
You say bye?
Bye-bye. Bye, Stormy.
Bye.
All right. See, that made my day.
Judge Simpson
I'm good now.
loves kids, you guys.
Okay.
If you don't know that.
Okay. Yeah.
This gentleman defaulted this morning. He did show up afterwards and indicated that because of prayer, he couldn't sign in until when he did. He's no longer present though, but he did show up.
Oh, okay. He's Muslim. That's why. Yes. Yep. Okay.
So there was conversation about this in
Miss
the chat.
England,
Yes.
on the Hyundai matter, he did show up. He explained to my staff.
So there was talk in the live chat of Judge Simpson's courtroom this morning. Michigan has the highest number per capita of Muslim folks outside of the Middle East. So the fact that it's the Eid al-Fitr today, Eid al-Fitr. So if you're Muslim, Eid Mubarak. It's the end of Ramadan, which is their holy month. It's actually a very, very big day in the world of Islam. So yeah, the Fatar prayers are pretty important.
He is Muslim, and because of prayer, could not be here at the time that he was here, or the time that we had it set. He did appear. I understand the nature of the case, but what I'm going to do is, given those circumstances, I'm not going to enter the judgment. I'm going to adjourn it out 1 week.
Okay.
That may be over your objection, but that's fine.
Definitely.
I'm that's what I'm going to do that,
Yeah, look on
because
her face.
what he indicates is the timing of the prayer and the ending and the breaking of the fast. I understand why he could not be here, presuming that he is Muslim, but all right.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, smash that like button. Don't be nice, be rude to it, and just smack it hard.
And so I'll set it for April 28th, 2023 at 1 p.m. Okay.
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 I'm gonna have to explain it to someone, but that's okay.
Well, either that or give them cultural diversity, and then they'll understand.
I know. It's just this specific one. It's fine.
Yes, I know.
The special.
Alrighty.
No judgment zone.
Well, thank you. And I will give me a couple of minutes. Judge Stormy needs a brief recess, and then we'll come back and we'll start our 10 o'clock block. Right here. All right. Court's in recess.
Judge Stormy Simpson. Okay. Oh, my contacts are messing up today, guys. Let's see. Now, Rachel, you mentioned it. So let me bring it back up. I'll play it again. Just for you, because you are the one.
And
my phone, is it my name and my phone number? Is it my name and my phone number?
Name, phone number, and an email address.
Yes, sir. I forgot the email.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
All right. She gonna mess it up. All right. Thank you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Take care.
So this is Judge Stormy Simpson Wednesday.
12 block. Okay, folks, give me about 5-10 minutes. Come back and I'll start running through the rest of the cases. Court is staying in brief recess.
Okay, we're looking at this Amber.
I need you to call the public defender's office so that I can speak to you briefly. I've been trying to reach out to the phone number we have on file. It does.
Hello?
Could you call the public defender's office, Amber, and ask for me? And they'll transfer you over to me. You have the phone number?
Yeah, someone got that. Ooh. But wait. There she's back. Oh, wait, she's in a bathroom, you guys. What was that? Allegedly a crack pipe. So what did I do? I emailed Lisa Ting. Lisa emailed me back. So yeah, it's actually, he pulled the video. It is now off of his, it's gone. He pulled everything. So yeah, I was like, I don't know. I emailed Lisa and I'm like, I don't know who else to contact, but I'm letting you know. And she was like, thank you. But I emailed from my personal email address before. I've emailed in the past and I've called the courthouse, but like I always used my Google email. So I was like, this is who I am, just so she knows like it was a legit thing. Like I said, I've emailed her before. But yes, so she emailed me back. I mean, literally, I think within 10 minutes. So I'm hoping the chick gets the help that she needs, because she allegedly had a crack pipe in court, and she had it on her hand. You could see she like was sorting something in her hand. So it's either some crack or some meth, and allegedly, in my opinion, was possibly crack or meth. I forgot my little things. I'm not an attorney, not making legal conclusions, putting forth any legal advice. All comments are my opinion, irregardless of any wordage that I use. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. What's my last one, you guys? Oh, ha! These are not official court records. There we go. I think I covered my bases. All right, let's go back to this case. Not quite as fun as crack pipes, but hello, I hit play. What is going on? Why are we not playing? What is going on? Okay, I don't know why it was doing that. Let's try it again. Here we go. I don't think we missed anything. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. I am so discombobulated right now. Oh. All right.
Thank you, officer.
Okay.
Can you redirect?
Go back a little bit.
Is that correct?
She stated she was the only other person in the house other than Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, that was crazy. She needs help, Jesus, and I just realized I'm not on screen. Ah! Thought you'd get rid of me.
Thank you, officer.
Can you redirect?
Officer, how many other times have you been called out to that residence?
Object relevance.
I think you opened the door for it when you asked about his prior engagement with your client. So I'm gonna allow it.
I can't recall the exact number of times, but by the approximate, say 3.
Were those all for assault or domestic related incidents?
No.
Thank you. No.
May this officer be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be excused. Any other witnesses?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Is defense calling witnesses today?
We'll rely on the evidence presented, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Sorry, may I proceed? Thank you. Your Honor, we've heard from the victim, Ms. Burtis, who said that she was in a dating relationship with the defendant. They were at his house. She had a drink or two. She was trying to leave at one point, and he grabbed her by the hair and pulled her back. He also grabbed her by the throat at the time and began to strangle her, Your Honor. She said that her breathing was not impaired during that time. However, he had took her and threw her to the floor, hitting her head on the floor. He put his knee on her neck, and at that point, her ability to breathe became impaired. She stated that she was screaming for help, and he responded with, "No one can hear you." With "No one can hear you," Your Honor. She testified that she did have
I'm
bruising.
discombobulated
It was there
24/7. It's all
present when
good.
an officer showed up. He noticed red marks on her neck and a scratch on her forehead, consistent with her head being slammed into the floor she testified to, and to a knee or something being around her neck at the time, Your Honor. She also said that the next day that those bruisings became more apparent. At this time, the people would also like to add an additional count 3 of unlawful imprisonment under MCL 750349B. Subsection B, secretly confine and knowingly restrain. And C, knowingly restrain to facilitate the commission of a felony, that felony being the great bodily harm by strangulation.
Any other argument?
She testified, as to that unlawful imprisonment, she testified that she was trying to leave and he grabbed her by the hair and pulled her back and then began to choke her. And that at another point during that time, he told her that nobody can hear you. So it asks that you bind over on all the counts and they added count 3 of unlawful imprisonment. Thank you.
Mr. Austin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Understanding, of course, that the burden of proof at this stage is probable cause, which is a relatively low burden. However, it is a burden that the people must meet. The court is the sole determiner of credibility at this stage. And while I think it's arguable that a lot of testimony could be considered issues of fact for a circuit court jury to sift through, just some things I would point out, Your Honor, there does seem to be some inconsistencies with what Ms. Berdays testified to here today with what she apparently initially told the responding officer. The way the responding officer made it sound, Ms. Berdays was making it sound like this alleged assault occurred on the couch. Today she's saying that it occurred on the floor. She initially told the officer that it lasted for approximately 10 minutes. Today she's telling us once.
He didn't testify to those things today.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
He didn't make any testimony about that today.
The officer, Your Honor?
About the time frame. He didn't testify.
I heard him say 10 minutes.
10 minutes, and she said she couldn't give an exact time because of her, she wasn't looking at a watch. So I don't know that that's an inconsistency.
Well, she said 10 to 15, 20 minutes in her testimony. And then the record can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I thought on cross she acknowledged it was around 20 minutes. That's all I'm saying.
Correct, but she also stated that she didn't look at her watch and that it felt like that to her.
I understand.
That's what so how is that an inconsistency?
Well, because again, Your Honor, all I'm saying is that she initially told the officer one thing. She said 10 minutes. I'm not trying to split hairs here, Your Honor, but that is what the responding officer testified to.
Not trying to split hairs, but he is playing semantics.
Time range, and then she's saying she's not sure. So I'm just merely saying that those two statements are not directly compatible or 100% consistent. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, your other statement as to what you believe is inconsistent is that she testified or she told the officer that it originally started on the sofa.
That is how I am interpreting his testimony.
Oh.
It is based on what she initially stated.
Good thing it's not up to his interpretation.
Happened on the couch.
Oh.
I do know that I believe she said today that she drove back from Mr. Patterson's residence to her house. The responding officer confirmed that she told him that she walked back. So all I'm asking the court to do, Your Honor, is to evaluate all of this when determining credibility. I would oppose the bind over. I would specifically oppose the bind over on the request for an added count of unlawful imprisonment. I just don't believe that the testimony gives rise to that. I would ask the court to dismiss the matter at this time.
Okay, and as to her walking back or driving back, I think you questioned her about that. While she was under oath, she said that she didn't tell the officer that she walked back.
Ooh. Ooh.
You asked her if she told the officers if she walked back. She said she didn't tell them that.
She may have said that. What I'm saying is, Your Honor, the officer stated today that she told him that she walked back. Today, she's stated that she drove back.
And she said that on the record today under oath that she told the officer that at the time of the incident. She didn't change her testimony today. Nonetheless, any re-argument from the people?
Just briefly, Your Honor, I want to touch on the statements that Mr. Austin is characterizing as consistent. At the time that she was speaking with the officer, she was in fear. She was in fear for her life at that time. She had just been assaulted during that time. She had testified that she felt like her neck was going to break at one point, Your Honor. And so I would just ask that Your Honor take that into account.
That's some force too.
The date, time that was set for a preliminary examination. The burden is on the prosecution at this time to establish there's sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed, insufficient probable cause to charge you with committing that crime. That's a flexible burden. It's based on the evidence presented today. And it's not to be compared to the standard that they would have to face if this matter was to make it to a trial. At the time of trial, they need to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a relatively low burden as indicated by your counsel, and it's more than mere suspicion that a crime was committed. I'm the sole and only determiner of credibility. And I'll make my ruling based on and considering the likelihood of the government's ability to establish guilt at the time of trial. In our complaint as filed, there is a count 1 of assault with intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder, or by strangulation. At the time of trial, per the Michigan Model Criminal Jury Instructions, the people would need to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt that first, the defendant tried to.
That was my neighbor's last conviction, by the way.
Second, that at the time of the assault, the defendant had the ability to cause an injury or at least believe that he had the ability. And third, that the defendant intended to cause great bodily harm. Actual injury is not necessary, but if there was an injury, you may consider it as evidence in deciding whether the defendant intended to cause great bodily harm. Great bodily harm means any physical injury that could seriously harm the health or function of the body. The testimony of Stephanie Burtis today was that she was in a dating relationship with the individual that she identified in court today as Scott Thomas Peterson. She stated that Patterson, thank you. She stated that at the date and time in question, that being March 12, 2023, at the area of 105 or North Cedar, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that she was living there on and off with the defendant. They had been in a dating relationship since September, October 2022. They had been drinking prior to the incident. That they were talking, the defendant got upset, and that she was going to get up to leave. When she got up to leave, she testified that the defendant grabbed her by her hair, swung her around, slammed her, grabbed her neck, slammed her on the ground, and then he placed his knee on her neck. The court specifically inquired for a redirect by the prosecution whether or not the time of point in which the defendant's knee was allegedly on the victim's neck, if that restricted her breathing or if there was any pressure being applied. She testified that she felt her neck was going to break, that her airflow was restricted. Mr. Ring clarified on his redirect that even prior to her being slammed on the ground, that there was a point in which the defendant placed his hands around Ms. Burtis' neck, but it did not sound like that was for an extended period of time. Nonetheless, I think that the action of placing the knee around the neck and restricting with pressure and restricting her airflow would constitute a strangulation. The court is satisfied that there's sufficient probable cause as to count 1, assault with intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder, or by strangulation based on those facts that will be bound over to the circuit court. People are filed at count 2, domestic violence, which is a misdemeanor that will accompany count 1. People are adding to add a count 3 of unlawful imprisonment. At the time of trial, the people would need to prove if this count is added beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant knowingly restrained another person. Restrain means to forcibly restrict a person's movements or to forcibly confine the person so as to interfere with the person's liberty without the person's consent or without lawful authority. The restraint does not have to exist for any particular length of time and may be related or incidental to commission of other acts. Second, the defendant did so under one of the following circumstances. A, the person is restrained by means of a weapon or a dangerous instrument. B, the restrained person was secretly confined, which means to keep the confinement or location of the restrained person a secret. Or C, the person was restrained to facilitate the commission of another felony or to facilitate flight after commission of felony. The facts as we heard them today by the testimony of the alleged victim was that she was getting up to leave after the argument, at which point the defendant allegedly grabbed her by her hair, preventing her from leaving, swung her around, put her in the neck, put his knee on her neck, and that she was attempting to scream or yell for help. And he made some comments to the
Sounds like a charmer, ladies. He's single.
No one was going to hear her, and she was going to end up like one of those MSU students. The court is satisfied that there is sufficient facts pled today for an count of unlawful imprisonment for the purposes of commission of a felony or to facilitate flight after the commission of a felony, that being strangulation. And so that will be added and that will be bound over to the circuit court.
I can't remember what the sentences for that, but that's a big one.
All three counts have a bind over
That's a
date of April
form of
12.
kidnapping.
Mr. Patterson, you do not need to appear in court on April 12th. That's the date the circuit court gets filed from this court. Your next court date will be a pretrial in circuit court. Both you and Mr. Austin will be made aware of that date, okay? Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Ooh.
Bond was set at 75,000 cash surety
Whew.
with GPS tether and victim notification.
That's a high bond.
Any additional matters at this time?
Nothing on behalf of people. Thank you, Your Honor.
We just briefly be heard on bond, if I may, Your Honor. Your Honor, I know there's been additional count added here today, but nonetheless, Your Honor, I am asking if the court would consider reducing Mr. Patterson's bond. It's currently set at 75,000, which is an amount that he could not or would not ever be able to afford to post. It has indicated that he has not posted it as of today. He has extremely limited income. As Ms. Verdes testified today, she does not reside with Mr. Patterson. So I think there's going to be adequate safeguards that will be able to be put in place to
pay attention to what's coming up here.
Her as well as the community was released. Doing a search of his Michigan iChat, Your Honor, doesn't appear that I see any prior convictions for him. And I have Mr. Ring confirm that with you of the CCH just earlier today. So it appears that he does not have any prior convictions that are showing up on this iChat, Your Honor. Danger of losing his home if he's not able to get out and tend to that soon. Given that, Your Honor, even with the additional count that was added today, I would ask the court to consider substantially reducing Mr. Patterson's bond.
Your Honor, I would like to just draw the court's attention to the testimony from Officer Turbo that he was at the Sparrow screaming very loudly that if he gets out of jail, he is going to get her. And also, I have informed Mr. Austin of some e-messages from the jail. There are currently upwards of 10 messages sent from him to her from the Ingham County Jail, Your Honor.
You mean in violation of his bond conditions?
That is correct, Your Honor.
This should also be noted, our records reflect that this is not the first time that there's been a domestic violence related charge against Mr. Patterson with the same victim And I believe at least on one of those occasions while he was out on bond on that pending matter, he allegedly picked up a PA-50 violation then by going to the same victim's house, assault him while out on bond. Bond.
Naughty,
Under
naughty.
the circumstances, anyone who is in the presence of the police and still threatening to cause harm to someone if released should be taken seriously as a threat. And so we have to take that threat seriously. With that being said, the bond will continue at $75,000 surety. Any additional matters for the record?
Nothing on behalf of people. Thank you, Your Honor.
With that, Your Honor, I have nothing further on behalf of Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. You're off the record. You may. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to this next clip that you guys need to watch because it's literally a few hours later, I want to talk about, I just threw up a link at the bottom. It's for my PayPal account. What I'm doing is I am actually making a documentary about the dentist I had as a child who was convicted on 15 counts of sexual assault for a little boy between the ages of 5 and 10. I don't remember how many counts of child abuse for other patients. Then his convictions got overturned on a technical difficulty of an indiscretion in the prosecutor's office. Then that prosecutor gave him a sweetheart of a deal. He pled no contest to 1 count of child abuse. No sex offender, no more jail time. He was free to go. Months later, that prosecuting attorney pled guilty to human sex trafficking. I'm making a documentary about it because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of us survivors of his. And the thing is we all thought that we were alone until I made a Facebook post. And I had people coming out of the woodwork, oh my God, he was my dentist. I thought I was the only one. You guys, it wasn't just him. But it's my story, our story is a place to start. I am not begging. I hate that term. If you feel it in your heart to support me in doing this documentary, even if it's just like $2 to my PayPal, I have to get sound equipment. I have a camera that'll be okay-ish. The video looked pretty good from what I looked at because I recorded myself on it. It looked okay. But I definitely need a different microphone, and that's I was looking there about $300 for the kind that I'm going to need. And that's a lot of money for me because I'm 100% disabled, and then as someone so gloriously gloated, I don't make money from my YouTube channel. So I don't really. If you guys could find it in your heart, if you want to help, and I am not joking, there are literally hundreds of us. There was a state senator that was involved in getting laws passed to deal with this situation, and if there are future situations like this with dentists, the original victim that stepped forward and he was convicted of assaulting, he's come forward wanting to help with this, you guys. I don't know, this story needs to be told. For me, it's been 30 years. But for some of these other folks, it's only been 10 or 15 years. He was practicing from the 70s until 2010. This man was allowed to torture children, and we all thought we were alone. So that is that. That is the documentary I'm making. My running title is One Story, Many Voices, Surviving Reset, because his name is Wendell Allen Reset. Google him. There's 2 articles about him. There's really not much information, which is, I'm not surprised at this point. But yeah. Okay, let's get to this next clip. Like I said, this is a same dude later the day. Go full screen.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Scott Patterson, file number 23-00785FY, council appearance.
Brian Ring on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Jared Austin appearing on behalf of Mr. Patterson. He appears with us today remotely from the Ingham County Jail.
Mr. Patterson, can you hear
He's
me?
in the jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're on the record in this matter because I was notified that there was a potential bond violation, and I just finished your exam about 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. I received a phone call from the victim at 12:33 this afternoon saying that she had received a call from the Ingham County Jail and she doesn't know anybody else in the jail besides Mr. Patterson. I had Adam Pfeiffer pull that call for me, and it looks like at 12:03 p.m. that he did attempt to call her. She informed me that she did not pick up. The crux of that call just said, "This is Thomas," which is his middle name. At 1 o'clock, at 1:03 p.m., there was an e-message sent from Scott Patterson, inmate 167352, to Bethany Burtis. This says, "Wow, I really thought you loved me. How can you live with yourself? I did not want you to drive drunk that night. This is why I tried taking the key off your neck, the same key that were around your neck today in court. That's not love, that's hate. I was really hoping to be with you today. That's all right. Have your vodka and have a nice life. You should feel real good about yourself putting an innocent man in jail."
Yeah. That's some classic.
Mr. Austin?
Yes, Your Honor. I've had an opportunity to discuss this with Mr. Patterson. I don't know that I want him making any statements at this time regarding that, as that could not only be him admitting potentially to a bond violation, but it could potentially be used as the genesis for some type of additional charge. I don't know, but I don't wish for Mr. Patterson to make any statements on that at this point.
Okay, well, I'm going to advise Mr. Patterson that he has the right to have a contested hearing as to the allegation of the bond violation. I think at the end or the conclusion of the examination during the bond modification motion request, I think it was mentioned that there was allegations of contact in violation of the no contact order. So my expectation is that a violation is forthcoming. And so we'll have this set for a hearing. You have the right to be represented by counsel at that bond violation hearing. And if you're found to be in violation, you could be facing additional restrictions in your bond, which was set at 75,000 cash surety, could be revoked, sir. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll enter a plea of not guilty at this time as it relates to the bond violation. However, I'm going to restrict your phone privileges pending that hearing. You're only allowed to call your attorney, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I request that include any e-messaging as well.
I'm gonna restrict your phone and e-message.
I can't call my mother.
Pending hearing. Well, if you were calling your mom before, you wouldn't be here. The allegations is that you're calling other people and not your mom.
I just got a hold of my mother today. My father just died last week and I just am getting a hold of her.
Well, then we should have had records of you sending messages to your mom today about the loss of your dad, and not an allegation that you were sending messages anywhere else.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. It kind of broke up there.
Dude, she slays, seriously.
Hello?
She's awesome. This is just Judge Simons out of Ingham County, 54B, I think.
You can have a hearing date, please. We set the phone. They might have to fix that. Let's call Jerry. Okay, they're supposed to be in the code, but they won't do a bond violation hearing and start the court for our bond.
Dude messed up bad.
Is Miss Martinez over here? Or Susie? Susie Gray. You can ask her how it needs to be said.
Unknown caller.
Is she on Messenger?
Yeah.
In 2020, the United States saw one of the most massive protests take place in our nation's history. The George Floyd protests that summer came with an endless wave of opinions.
I'm out here because I am 73 years old and I've seen this kind of madness for far too long. It's time, it really is. Nobody's asking to get away with anything, just justice.
Some felt that they were a signifier of hope, that maybe there could be some progress happening. Companies at least tried to pretend as if they cared about racial inequality, even though we can assume that they most definitely do not. Meanwhile, others saw the protests as outrageous and examples of anti-cop rhetoric chock full of unneeded violence, uproars, and property damage.
We didn't have protests last night. We had criminal acts. We didn't have people mourning the death of this man, George Floyd. We had people capitalizing. His death is on their hands.
One of the reasons for this overwhelmingly negative view was the news. During the summer, they almost exclusively reported on the violence of the protest, even though an overwhelming 97% of cases were peaceful.
This was what began as a peaceful protest in Santa Monica,
and now has turned to some mayhem.
A dozen businesses were broken into as protesters filled the streets on Milwaukee's north side.
Protests turned destructive in downtown Seattle tonight. Here's what we know.
The breaking news as the George Floyd protests turned destructive in parts of Manhattan.
But something else lending itself to the immediate outrage was a strong sense of support for police officers. After all, they were supposed to be the good guys, right? At least, that's what the movies, TV shows, and even the news tells us. For our entire lives, at least as Americans, we've been told over and over and over and over again that cops are the heroes, and they have been portrayed as such on shows like NCIS, Law and Order, and even kids shows like Paw Patrol. We almost always see the police as the good guys in film and television and fiction. They're always there to just stop the bad guys. This certain media phenomenon has actually been going on for so long that there's even a name for it: copaganda. As the media does their jobs to produce content that frames cops as the do no wrong good guys, it has made any type of criticism towards law enforcement that much more difficult. And this was done with intention. It has made reform virtually impossible, and it has forever altered the public discourse revolving around police brutality. But why is this even happening? The media is meant to be a critique of society and expression through art. So why the hell are we seeing the same cop stories on repeat, and what does it mean for us as a society?
Like me.
Well, that's the focus of today's episode, and that's what we're here to talk about. So hello, I'm the Illuminati, and this is the Corporate Casket.
Illuminati. I really like her.
Back in the day, cops and the media were not portrayed in the best of lights. In fact, prior to the 1920s, when you saw a cop on TV, you were usually about to see a scene of complete and utter incompetence meant to make you laugh at law enforcement's inability to do even the most simple of jobs. In 1917's Easy Street, Charlie Chaplin even played a police officer who was only able to save the victim after apparently sitting on a drug addict's needle and picking up superpowers from the accidental injection. I'm not going to question the logic there. That's a whole different thing entirely, but that's pretty much about as incompetent as you can get. Police and media were almost always used as comedic relief and displayed as inept buffoons that were constantly being mocked by the others in the film itself. And the people gleefully watched the boys in blue fuck up in hilarious manners time and time again. And to a degree, that is a reflection of reality if we take a look at pretty much any point of the news cycle ever. After a while, law enforcement officers were pretty sick and tired of their comedic representation, so they went to work trying to change media as we know it. And as you know, because we're talking about it today, they succeeded. They would take back their representation by force. In 1908, the New York mayor shut down every movie theater in New York City with the police leading the charge. Wow. And 2 years later, the Association of Chiefs of Police drafted a resolution that adamantly condemned the media for the horrible portrayal of their industry. Soon, even the Supreme Court would step in and say that movies were not worthy of First Amendment protection. Now, it was perfectly fine for media to be censored with no legal recourse. Eventually, that ruling would be overturned, but this was the very least of the industry's worries. And just, I'm sorry, but is it too early for a tangent? I think not. Can we just put that in perspective of today for just a moment? And unfortunately, I like to say it's hypothetical, but unfortunately with how the Supreme Court's currently sitting, nothing's hypothetical anymore. I'm looking at you, Justice Clarence, with the many, many trips. But of course, you guys are just besties. Anyway, could you imagine that there's a case that goes before the Supreme Court and literally they're like, yeah, cops look bad in the movies and we don't like that anymore. And the Supreme Court agrees and go, actually, yeah, like this form of art, not protected. Yeah, you talk bad about cops, you're liable. Actually, interestingly enough, with all the rules that are being stripped away and how in some like states and counties and stuff, you can't even protest anymore. I guess this isn't really hypothetical anymore. But I digress. That's apparently a conversation for a different day. Now, before long, the movie industry would become reliant on assistance from the LAPD. So what a twist here. And why, you might ask? Well, because their stars would continuously do illegal shit and they required help covering it up. So yeah, they essentially needed protection for their stars that were homosexual because, again, at one point in time, that was illegal. I bet you were thinking I was going to say they were all doing mountains of cocaine. Nope, not really. They were just being who they were, but society hadn't caught up with that yet. Apparently, they needed to play nice with the LAPD, who are pretty famous for their corruption, so much so that LA is actually now investigating the 50-year police gangs. And apparently, LAPD has 18 police gangs, which is bananas.
Yeah.
But Hollywood couldn't critique any of this because they needed the police's help to hide their various misdeeds and force permits and work as security on set. One day, an actor
That's
named
scary,
Jack
you
Webb
guys.
decided he had the solution to the problem and a way to make both Hollywood and the police happy. And what was that solution, you might ask? Well, it was to involve the LAPD in the production of a movie. Because, what could go wrong with letting the police completely control the narrative about themselves? There's no way that that could have any unforeseen circumstances on society, right? But Hollywood needed the approval of law enforcement, and law enforcement needed Hollywood to stop portraying them as hopeless buffoons. So Webb and the LAPD chief William Parker entered into a partnership to create the movie Dragnet, which was, quote, an authentic look at police work. They didn't stop there, though. This wasn't just a movie, even though it started that way. Soon, the groundbreaking partnership between the LAPD and the industry rolled into a radio show, then a TV series, and law enforcement was involved every single step of the way. The TV series was released in 1951, and they were not only working as extras, but they were controlling the entire narrative. The scripts were formally approved by the LAPD Public Information.
You know how messed up that is? So she's saying they had complete control over what was being said about them? You want to talk? Oh my God. You guys. That's horrible. Like, okay, I'm not anti-cop. I'm anti-bad cop. And if you're a cop and you see a bad cop doing a bad thing and you don't do anything to stop it, that makes you a bad cop. Okay, and we know LAPD is notoriously corrupt and horrible. I mean, well, I don't know how old all of you, my viewers, are, but I certainly remember the Rodney King beating. I remember that vividly, being on the news cycle as what we had news back in the early 90s. But, I mean, like, my whole life, you hear about how bad the LAPD is. And this is why. I never, ever knew that. Never. That, I'm kind of shocked. That's messed up. So we've let the most corrupt, gang-riddled police department set the narrative for all cop shows. That's a problem. And don't get me wrong, I'm still going to watch Law & Order. I love Law & Order. SVU, Olivia Benson's my girl. All right. And I love me some Elliot Stabler, even though he really probably should not be a cop anymore. But that's horrible. That, I mean, literally makes me rethink every cop procedural I've ever watched. It makes me feel sick. Ugh. You guys, that's so gross.
Information Division, and if there was anything the department objected to, the entire episode would be thrown in the trash. Censorship at its finest. The story was presented as being undeniably true, which it wasn't. It portrayed a diversified LAPD, even though they were still segregated at the time, and seemed to completely miss the fact that LAPD cops that same year had beat 7 men for an hour in an incident so badly that it was later called Bloody Christmas. So much for authentic.
Wow.
But that didn't seem to matter to literally anybody, and this new model of working with the LAPD to develop media content soon became the norm, and thus, Copaganda was born. Maybe you've heard that phrase before. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing it. Basically, Copaganda is just defined as, quote, the reproduction and circulation in mainstream media of propaganda that is favorable to law enforcement. It can be anywhere from TV shows to movies and even the news. Copaganda is after one goal and one goal only, to make the police look good. Gone are the days of the comedic punchlines and the inability for them to do their jobs. Now, police were displayed almost exclusively as the heroes, the folks there to help and those who can do no wrong. And this new form of media, this propaganda, is very, very effective. I even remember as a child watching, certain movies or TV shows or whatever, and seeing cops and investigators and stuff like that doing their thing, solving cold cases, all that kind of stuff. And it was so damn fascinating to me as a child. I was like, this has got to be the coolest job ever, because you get to solve crimes, you get to help people, you get to save the day, you get to bring closure to these families for things that have happened to them and stuff like that. And the problem is that's exactly what propaganda does. It takes especially young people, but everybody, and goes, this is good. This is what you want to be when you grow up. Thankfully, I did grow out of that, as you can obviously tell, but when I was younger, it absolutely did make an impression on me. So I'm not sitting here and saying like, I'm some immune pyramid to all of this and I know better and blah, blah, blah. I fuck up just like everybody else. And though I'm not going to say what I did as a child, being like, oh my God, I watched this TV show with this cool police officer solving a crime and I thought it was really cool and that I wanted to be one, that's the biggest fuck up in the whole world. I think that just shows that this was effective marketing and that this is something that still continues to this day. And on that tangent, you've probably seen propaganda yourself more times than you can even count. You've just probably never realized it either. So let me go ahead and help you out. Let's take a look at some examples of propaganda as seen on TV, shall we? Now, we've already talked about Dragnet, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end. But that's way back in the 1950s. People have had time to perfect this ability to make cops look extra special and awesome for quite some time now, and propaganda is quite literally everywhere. There's a seemingly endless amount of cop shows that grace our televisions. In fact, they make up about 20% of all the shows on broadcast networks. By the way, that doesn't even include predominantly legal dramas. Now, not all of them are participating in the traditional propaganda method. Some actually do critiquing, but others not so much. It's just like a little love fest and, licking the boot. Yummy, yummy. Boot tastes so good. Am I right? If you ever see me writing that on a comment in one of my YouTube videos, just know that person probably deserved it. But anyway, let's talk about Law and Order, for example, which is one of the biggest franchises in American TV history that has been on our screens for literally decades at this point. And over the years, it seems like almost everyone has been on the show. Not only do we see successful actors on the show repeatedly, but we even see politicians making their mark on American media by appearing in the crime series. The show has become so massive that people often use it as a reference point to describe just how much they know about the law, which, when you think about it, is pretty terrifying. What makes it even more concerning is that Dick Wolf, the show's producer, who worked previously as the ad director, had followed pretty much the exact same playbook as Dragnet. Sure, cops and prosecutors do not necessarily have the same access to Law and Order in the way that they did with the famous 1951 television series, but they do have a heavy influence on Dick, who has even said explicitly in interviews, quote,
there is a shared interest in putting bad guys away and having cops, shown in a decent light. I am kind of unabashedly pro law enforcement.
So when someone has that type of view and is producing a show watched and loved by millions, it's reasonable to think that they won't be portraying things in a completely accurate light or a socially moral one. In fact, in a study done by Color of Change, they found that the cops on the show were often shown doing bad things for a good reason. While in stark contrast, the criminals were not given the same explanation. They were simply bad for the sake of being bad. And what was the result? Viewers became much more likely to believe that bad or illegal acts done by police officers and prosecutors are just simply necessary evils that are totally acceptable. I'm sure that doesn't have any bearing in the real world. Right? I'm just kidding. That was obviously sarcasm. It does. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. It's no wonder why cops are big fans of the show. I would be too if my job was shown in such a damn good light. Now then, there's also the whole design of the show. If you've seen an episode, you probably know the structure. A bad person does a bad thing, cops arrest a bad person, and the bad person goes to trial. It's kind of the same formula every single time. But in reality, this type of scenario isn't actually how our legal system works at all. In real life, about 90% of criminal cases never even make it to trial because people end up pleading guilty. What the show does get right, though, is that most defendants who do choose to go to trial do end up getting convicted. And those are some fucking staggering numbers that you would never really know unless you have been through the criminal justice system yourself or have done quite a bit of outside research. Because a cop prosecutor-centered show is not going to tell you that our criminal justice system relies on people pleading guilty to crimes, even if they are innocent, to avoid the very high possibility of a harsher sentence if they go to trial. But of course, there are a lot more examples than just Law and Order, even ones you wouldn't guess, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And you may be thinking, hey, Illuminati, pump the brakes. That show doesn't necessarily show cops in the best of light. They are comedic in a sense, and it isn't supposed to be accurate portrayals like Law and Order and Dragnet. Well, you're right, but you still have to look just a hair deeper than that. So yes, on the surface, the show is definitely making fun of cops, but it also shows a disconnect between what we would hope would be the reality in police departments and what actually is. When Raymond Holt first comes onto the scene as the gay, black NYPD officer, he faces discrimination. But slowly and surely, he is, as the Washington Post puts it, turned into a mascot of departmental tolerance. The great aspect of this storyline is that it does show that the NYPD is certainly not perfect by showing the initial discrimination, but it...
Okay, so like I've literally never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love Law and Order and stuff like that, but I've never seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I have no idea. It just seems creepy to me, watching like some sort of haha funny, whatever, like bumbling, I don't know.
Also,
maybe, okay, so the propaganda is working because I don't want to watch
seems
it.
to exaggerate the department's capability of reform far beyond what is accurate in reality. Simply put, it's sugarcoating. And this type of sugarcoating seems to be pretty traditional in the cop genre, and many shows display a picture of diversity within law enforcement that is just nowhere close to reality. Shows on TV that portray law enforcement often put a heavy emphasis on diversity, which is great for representation of more people of color or in the LGBTQ media space, but it isn't so wonderful for the truth of what most police departments really look like. While they are full of diversity on TV, they aren't in real life. In fact, only about 15% of police officers are black in the United States, which is a horrendous underrepresentation of what our population actually looks like. But there's more, because there always is. Cop shows also have a nasty little habit of portraying most criminals as people of color, and have even portrayed people intentionally harming themselves purely so they can place blame on cops for police brutality. In an episode of CBS's Blue Bloods, a black subject literally throws himself out of a window completely unprovoked, purely so they could frame a white officer for police brutality. Clearly, this type of narrative is detrimental to those reporting actual instances of police brutality in the United States. And there's a lot of it. But these types of televised examples gives police at least some reassurance that they can simply claim that people are making it up to get some sort of payout or to make police officers look bad. And since these types of episodes sit in the back of our head and a lot of people go, this must be what it's really like, they lend that credibility of a fictional event in a show to reality, and it makes no sense whatsoever. And what's extra shitty about it is then the police weaponize.
Okay, you want to know what it's like for cops, most cops? Go watch Ironton Auditors live tonight as he drives around, because they're never, like, they don't do anything all night long. The cops, like, there's nothing to do. That's how most towns are. The county I live in, we don't even have deputies that patrol out county anymore because there's nobody here. Although, granted, I live quarter mile from state police headquarters, so I'm not worried about that. Like, they're here instantly. Literally, I think we have under a 2-minute response time. So, but yeah, most police departments are small departments. They're not huge like the NYPD or Chicago or LA. They're little departments. They have small budgets. They only have a few officers. So yeah, you're not going to get that representation that they make you see on TV, because they're not looking at real life America. And that's something people seem to forget, that TV, like these TV shows is made up. a lot of YouTubers that do videos like they show off their wealth or their situation is so good. It's made up. You know, that's just all there is to it.
Weaponize that mindset that people are now being
not
curated
real.
into believing, and they absolutely just use it to get shit dismissed, even when that's not the truth. For a local Colorado example, which I'm sure for anyone in Colorado, you've been keeping up on this and it's probably pissed you off too. Do you guys remember back in the beginning of this year that a woman was suing the police because she was locked in the back of a car and then put on train tracks, and then the police car was hit by train tracks and she was severely injured? Which, did I mention she was handcuffed in the back of that car? She had no recourse, no escape, no action. Anyway, she sued the police.
That's scary.
And the police officer who placed her in the cruiser that was then hit by the train, he's pleaded not guilty and wants the charges dropped. And what's really sickening is in local circles here and stuff like that in Colorado, there are some people that absolutely fucking defend this shit. And I see them spouting off to their 1,000 followers on Twitter, and I'm just like, can you be embarrassing somewhere else? Like, she literally was like a mouse in a fucking cage, and then they put that cage on the fucking train tracks and let it hit her. But because we've got this instilled sense inside of us that oh my God, well, on Law and Order, the cops are good. Therefore, even if this cop did a bad thing, it must have been for a good reason. People try and defend this shit. And I'm like, there is no defense here. I know legally there has to be because they have a defense attorney. But my opinion, no defense here. You can't do that to somebody and get away with it. But they're fucking trying anyway, and I hope they don't. But anyway, I digress. Again, point here to say is that propaganda is so pervasive that we can even find it in kids' TV shows. I mean, there is literally a show that is all about adorable puppies helping a person solve crimes, and the main character of which is a cop. But there's also more nuanced instances like Peppa Pig, which can't believe I'd ever be discussing Peppa Pig, but here we are. In one episode, officers visit a classroom and are met with cheers from the kids. Hooray, the police! For the rest of the scene, the police teach the class how to ride their bikes. They are the helpful, the involved adults. As Black and brown kids are receiving lessons from their parents about how to keep safe from police officers, kids' shows are giving a completely different lesson. Police officers are always the good guys who are just simply there to help. Obviously, kids don't need to be seeing the reality of police brutality, but they also don't need to be seeing a sunny, watered-down, unrealistic version of law enforcement either. How about we just keep law enforcement officers out of kids' shows altogether unless they're documentaries made for children, which that's a thing too.
Okay, my nephew is 5. He does not understand any of the nuances she's talking about. And the age of kids that watches Peppa Pig is 3 to 5 or 6. And I think 6 or 7 is pushing it. But these kids don't understand the difference. At least, I don't know. I'm not a Black person, and I'm not the mother of a Black child, so I don't know. I can't speak on that. I mean, I am technically a person of color, even though I look very white, because I'm Native American, but I can't speak on that. I know what I teach my nephews is very different. I'm very sure it's very different from what a Black mom would teach her kids in an inner city, or a rundown area of a larger town like Detroit or Lansing. I'm going to tell where my nephews live. It's a very different scenario, even though it's in the same region. That I've never had to think about that. I guess that makes sense. Wow.
Too, by the way, very interesting, might I add. Yes, propaganda is everywhere in media. And as Amber Ruffin says on The Amber Ruffin Show, propaganda is
the most effective and long-running ad campaign of all time.
Portraying police in a negative light can come at a cost. The creator of The Wire even had...
Okay, so... Yes, I get what you're saying, and I kind of get her point, but we still need little kids to know, that as a whole, cops are safe if they're, lost. all that kind of stuff, like you go to the police or you go to the firefighters, I think that is still something that needs to be taught to kids, regardless of all the other bullshit mushrooms that's going on. That one's a tough one. That is a very, very, very tough one. I am going to have to I'm going to talk to some of my friends, and I want their opinion on that, because I never thought about that. But I'm pretty sure my friends' kids watch Peppa Pig, though, or they did. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to ask.
Had to testify in front of the Baltimore City Council about the negative image of Baltimore depicted in The Wire. But it's not just fictional media that is running this long-running ad campaign. It's the news that does it too. Now, before we continue on to talk about the news cycle, and then of course, obviously how all of this collectively is impacting us as a society, I'm going to go ahead and place today's sponsor here, because this next section about the news and today's sponsor, anything in that which so we should. Please know that this section will discuss death and police brutality. If that might be a little too much for you to hear at the moment, please feel free to skip this section. Now, propaganda doesn't just appear in artistic interpretations of reality. It's present in our everyday real life too. In 2015, protests broke out after a cell phone video was released to the public of the moment that Nicholas Robertson was shot 33 times by police officers while walking away. But as the protests kept growing, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department decided to do something about it and released a new video of Robertson holding a gun. Soon, the news followed their lead. They gave ample coverage to the police side of the story, that he was a persistent threat who had been shooting before they arrived. And slowly but surely, the protest died down and everyone seemed to forget about the terrifying incident. That is, until about 2 years later, when even more videos emerged that utterly disproved the police's claims. Robertson hadn't shot the gun at deputies, and in fact, the gun wasn't even loaded. It had all been a lie developed by the law enforcement's public relations team and exacerbated by the news consistently covering their side of the story without doing any further research to confirm its truthfulness. And we see this a lot, and believe it or not, it is just another form of propaganda. Police all across the country have developed communications teams purely so that they can draft the right message, and the news seems all too willing to rely on their lead rather than doing any type of background research to discover the true story. You know, the story that might make the cops look bad if people found out. While some say that the fast-moving nature of the news is the culprit for this phenomenon, others say that the police press operations nearly always put forth a storyline that makes officers' actions appear justified. And we've seen this multiple times. In fact, it's so many times we can't even count the shit anymore. Police are praised for their efforts even when they did the worst thing, or sometimes even more terrible, like the case with Uvalde, nothing at all. After that tragic shooting took place nearly a year ago, the original story seemed to praise the officers present for their heroic actions. The governor, Greg Abbott, even made a specific point in a press conference to hail the quick response of the valiant local officials. In part, he said, "As horrible as what happened was, it could have been worse. The reason it was not worse is that law enforcement officials did what they do. They showed amazing courage by running toward gunfire." And we can all have a very solemn chuckle because the news would come out that the police had not, in fact, run toward gunfire as Abbott claimed. In actuality, over 300 law enforcement were on scene that day, more than the amount that literally defended the Alamo. And yet, it took them more than an hour to actually stop the shooter. There was no leadership, no communication, and no one ran toward gunfire, except for some of the parents. That's who went in there to go and save children.
You guys,
parents,
that's horrible.
not the police officers, because they were fucking afraid. And I know there are some tasty boot munchers that maybe are still listening, though I doubt it at this point. Most of the yummy bootlickers stop at around 10 to 12 minutes, I've noticed. However, if there's one in here still that's going, "But Blair, it's very scary," okay? Shootings are very scary. I know shootings are very scary. That's why these police officers take that job with an understanding that it's to protect the citizens that they reside over. That was literally their job. They failed their fucking job. Like, I don't know how much more clear to make that. Okay. Is it scary? Yes. Is there potential that they might be hurt on the job? Yes. And they know those things. But you know what they decided to do instead? They decided to just let the children become fucking Swiss cheese in that school because they were very scared. I have zero fucking sympathy for them, in case you can't tell. Now, while some of the news about this abhorrent failure at Uvalde came out relatively quickly, it took about 3 months before investigators released the entire story, which was enough time that it seemed like the general population had moved on from it completely, which that's a whole fucked up phrase on its own. But anyway, so what may have been a protest if all of this information had come out that same day seemed to garner way less outrage than it rightfully deserved. More often than not, police are portrayed as always being right there at the right time, doing the right thing and saving lives. Meanwhile, others are vilified and crime rates are over-exaggerated in an attempt to make the views of law enforcement more favorable in the wake of calls to reform the justice system. After all, if it bleeds, it leads. And it's unfortunately true. We like bad news better than good news. But when the FBI crime data report is released, you can almost always count on the news to take the worst possible statistic and plaster that bad boy everywhere, ignoring literally everything else.
You literally
in 2021, when the data was released, the Washington Post, New York Times, NPR.
You literally can go to the FBI website and look up the crime statistics reports. Like every police department, every police officer, they have to fill out a little bubble sheet for the FBI for every crime, which is why a lot of times they'll write like an incident report, but they won't have it actually be listed as a crime, because those bubble sheets are, well, they might be electronic now, I would hope. I mean, I did do the academy in 2002, 2003, so it's been a while since I've been around, but just saying, the bubble sheets were hell.
NBC News, The Hill, and The Guardian all had headlines focused purely on the rising homicide rate. But they failed to mention the other statistics that told a completely different story. Sure, the murder rate did rise in 2020 compared to the year previously, but homicides were actually at record lows in the country, especially when we compare it to the homicide rates of the 80s and 90s. Of course, they also didn't seem to consult any professionals on the subject like public defenders, social workers, academics, or researchers. Instead, they turned to the police and let them spin the narrative to, as Scott Hettinger, the public defender and executive director of Zealous, says, use their failures to demand more resources, funding, and more support. Because at the end of the day, it always comes back to the mighty, mighty dollar bill. There's more to this issue than just that, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. But back to the crime statistics, because there's more to that than most people know. For one, most cities don't even report their crime statistics to the FBI. So they're automatically not the best judge of how the country is doing crime-wise. Oh, and the definition of what a crime is in that famous report that was developed by, you guessed it, police chiefs over 100 years ago. So when you hear crime is up, it's almost always referring to cities that are committed by marginalized people and almost never by the wealthy. Tax evasion isn't counted, environmental crimes aren't counted, stealing wages from workers, none of that is counted. Crimes that are included in that crime is rising narrative is almost always defined by crimes committed predominantly by the poor, aka the people the police actually target. Because remember, kiddos, white-collar crime is apparently not real crime until it is. Then it's crime, but it's not counted in those statistics because, you know, that would make everybody look bad, you know? So maybe the next time you hear the narrative about how dangerous cities are getting or how crime-ridden the United States is, go ahead and take a moment to look deeply at that narrative. What are they actually saying? And where is that data actually coming from? Most importantly, what story are the people talking about crime trying to tell? Over the years, propaganda has had a profound effect on how our society functions, and it impacts a lot more than you would think. Media is one of the most powerful aspects of how we develop our view of society, and it plays an important role in our development, even when we're kids. So when we see propaganda everywhere, from the news to major TV shows to kids programs, it can be a little bit more than just concerning. When we see propaganda on TV shows constantly, our ability to discern the truth from fiction becomes increasingly more difficult. When shows like Cops, for example, predominantly depict white police officers arresting people of color, viewers of the show are more and more inclined to believe that people of color commit substantially more crimes than they really do.
I don't watch
In
it
fact,
anymore,
a
though.
2007 analysis of the Cops show found that nearly 62% of offenders who were shown on screen were men of color. The show was also far more likely to show men of color as violent and white men as nonviolent. This in turn gives viewers a completely warped sense of reality. It's a complete overrepresentation.
So a local sheriff, that the cops program actually tried to come to the county and wanted to film, and the sheriff said no. His reason was he didn't want to have the people of the county portrayed on the worst day of their lives. And I'm going to call bullshit talking mushrooms because this county is so corrupt. The sheriff was elected into office after his dad, and he vowed to fix the corruption and all that other stuff and go after the corrupt officials, even if they were family, and he hasn't. And I'm not going to say he's as bad as his dad was, because his dad had a really nice house for someone that was just the sheriff of a county. But I've had a couple interactions with the sheriff's department under the new sheriff, and let me tell you, I don't want to be in that county. I hate going into that county. It's so freaking corrupt that I literally got assaulted by a guy, and I wanted to press charges. Well, he turned around and tried to say I assaulted him or I was trying to steal his wallet or something. Dude got in my face, screaming in my face, threatening to beat my ass. And, yeah, I called the police. And then I was driving home and I had a deputy call me and tell me that if I went through with pressing charges against him for assault, the sheriff was going to charge me with attempted theft. So that's how that county deals with victims, is they turn around and threaten them with the crime, the sheriff's department does. So they won't and the sheriff came out on that day. The sheriff literally responded to the call. And it's scary that happened. I was assaulted by a man I did not know assaulted me. And he tried to say I was trying to rob him. I was not very healthy. I was walking with a cane. How am I going to move fast enough to get his wallet from him? First of all, I digress. But I'm just saying, that's the sheriff that didn't want cops to be there because they didn't want the citizens to be shown in a bad light on the worst day of their lives. No, I don't think you wanted anyone having access to your department to see the bullshit that happens. And trust me, I know about some of the bullshit that happened back in the day. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Of the crime that is actually being committed in the real world, and it makes viewers develop an understanding that people of color are far more likely to be violent than white people. And it's just not true. Let's look at mass shootings, for example, because that's always a fucking fresh topic here in the US for some reason. Wonder why. For the last 3 decades, over half of the mass shootings in the country were committed by white shooters. But no one wants to have that conversation for whatever reason. This type of media is also the primary example of law enforcement for many Americans. Only 21% of Americans who are 16 or older have ever experienced interactions with police officers. Therefore, the media may be legitimately their only way to develop an understanding of policing. And that can be a pretty terrifying thought when we look at shows like Law & Order that show police committing illegal or immoral actions for the greater good. People who only see this develop an understanding that it's perfectly fine for police to break the law as long as they get the bad guy. Not only does this impact them if they ever happen to have interactions with police, but it also impacts their ability to understand the general problem with police brutality. And think about it. How many times have you seen a news story focused primarily on the background, criminal history, or badness of someone who was harmed or even killed by police officers? We definitely and very clearly saw it with George Floyd. How many times have you seen people say something along the lines of, Well, if they didn't want to get hurt, they shouldn't have done XYZ thing. Yeah, that comes from the understanding that police brutality, lawlessness, or immorality is a necessary evil to catch bad guys, no matter the cost. In turn, this has completely undermined people's ability to call
That's
for reform.
problematic.
Who cares if the police are breaking the law and hurting other people as long as they're protecting us from criminals, right? When people called to defund the police, the first arguments were, well, who are you going to call when something goes wrong? Manufactured crime statistics in the news make cops seem vital in protecting social order and lead to an increase in police budgets and a decrease in calls for reform or abolition. We've seen it in New York this entire past year. Over and over, news source after news source has released crime wave reports, and the police budget has absolutely exploded in response. Now, by the way, it's about $11 billion a year, and even with that, they have exceeded their overtime budget by over $400 million just this year. And again, we're not even halfway through the year. Our view on law enforcement is completely warped by the media, and it's definitely time for a change. After the George Floyd protests of 2020, some shows were canceled and others were reevaluated. But we still have an abundance of work to do to get the propaganda off of our screens and our news sources. Everything isn't perfect, and that's especially true for the criminal justice system. And again, I encourage everyone to look a little bit deeper and do a little extra research when you just suddenly see a blatant statistic popped up like that. Why is it like that?
I go where stuff's
Why is
good.
the news reporting it like that? And for the love of God, please don't rely on TV shows to warp your view of reality. It's ultimately just propaganda. But with all of that being said, that is where we're going to end today's episode of The Corporate Casket. I hope you learned something new here today, and if you did, make sure...
Okay, guys. So, obviously, like, I had a bunch of other videos ready to go, edited, and they didn't transfer, and I deleted them off of my devices, so I have to see if I can go back and get the cases again. Dude, I'm loving Judge Simmons. I'm telling you, she's something. But that case that I covered, woo, that's fairly common. I was a domestic violence investigator advocate for that county. So, and I started with the Lansing Police Department. So that's fairly typical of those situations in this area, in that area. And that was a long time ago, but still the same, you know. I don't know why she was hanging around with him. Hopefully she stays away. The fact that she alerted the prosecutor or the police right away that he was trying to contact her, hopefully that is a good indicator that she's over him. I hope so for her safety. But I will try and follow that one up. It did get remanded up into the circuit court, so I have to look and see which judge it's in front of. Thinking probably Judge Aquilina. I don't even know how many circuit court judges they have in Ingham County anymore. But I will be back tomorrow. I can't say I promise you guys because it's me and I have ADHD to holy hell, and you know I'm one of these days I'll get it together. I promise. I swear to you guys. Someday I will get it together, okay? I'm working on it. Hold on. I cannot read the screen, Lucy. Show that comment. There we go. I haven't watched a whole lot of her. I was watching some stuff that was fairly boring. But I like it. She's got some spiciness in her, and I like that. I approve of that, where she kind of claps back, you know, the whole, when she said, well, if you were calling your mom, you wouldn't be here. I was like, oh, hoo-hoo. Shots fired. Shots fired, man. But anyways, so tomorrow, we say 2:15 tomorrow. I think that's a good time. 2:15. I have to install some new lights for the front and back porch. I bought some cute new lights, so I'm gonna put those in tomorrow. So 2:15. I'll get that stuff done in the morning, and it'll give my hubs a chance to mow and hopefully me not have an allergic reaction to it. Thank you guys, Chimagwitch. Big thank you for coming and watching today and hanging out with me. Again, hit that like button. If you are not subscribed, subscribe. I'm working on, I have stuff edited. I just haven't uploaded it yet. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff medically, so I have not been pumping out a lot of content. But I promise I'm still watching court, so I'm still getting videos. I'm still recording cases. So it's just, you're going to get deluged with court content here soon. So tomorrow, 2:15 Eastern Standard Time, right here on my channel. I will see you guys. I will find some good stuff for you. I need to go eat lunch before my blood sugar gets any lower. So, Chimagwitch, and we will see you later. And I need an outro or something. And an intro. Can someone tell me how to do that? Because I don't know. Alright. See you tomorrow, folks.